Well, thank you, everybody. We're going to move on now to talk about male allyship. And first of all, I'd like to thank Alessandra for inviting me and TTG Media to be involved this afternoon. TTG is on a mission to promote smarter, better, fairer travel. And it's the fairer part of our mission, promoting an industry that's fairer both to the environment and to the people that work within it, that is most important to us. And I must say that at TTG, I am surrounded by some absolutely brilliant women that force me and push me on to being a much better and more empathetic leader as we work together. And I'm really, really grateful for that. I've really enjoyed the conversation and the discussion so far today. It's been incredibly refreshing. Just a few weeks ago, I was at a major industry conference hosted by one of the big banks. It was a full morning thing. It started at 9. We had the opening keynote speaker. We had an economist, a banker, a panel of 4 people and a moderator. And we got to the break, and we didn't see one female speaker until about 11:30, I think it was. And actually, that was Julia from Advantage. And she called it out at the time, and I was calling it out on social media as well. So how refreshing today. I think the first male speaker joined the platform just before 11, actually. And fair play to you, sir, as well, I have to say. But yeah, a really refreshing day so far. But I would also like to say, I think a lot of what's been said should be heard by men as well. And it would be good to see more men taking part in these events. You know, we're going to try and give this content a wider voice through TTG. And Julia, coming back to Julia again, she said earlier on the stage, women have got to stop being so tough on themselves when it comes to careers. And I'd go one further and say a lot of men, a lot of male leaders have still got to stop being so tough on women as well. And there's still a lot of understanding, a lot of improvement to be made. But thanks to the fantastic work of Women in Travel, I think some big steps are being made. And of course, one way to improve that understanding is through allyship. And I'm sure many of you were involved in the last International Women in Travel and Tourism Conference that took place online last year. And one of the outcomes from that was the establishment of the first male allyship network. And since then, I know there have been 12 successful mentor-mentee relationships involving senior male leaders. They've been talking about topics from career development, business opportunities, building a personal brand, and I think talking to a number of the participants, it's clear it's been a real two-way relationship and really has helped with the understanding. Now we're going to actually talk live on this stage to 3 of those couples, those working couples. And digging deeper into what's come out of the Male Allyship Network. But before that, we're going to look at the topic a bit more generally, and where better to start than with the biggest travel giant of all, with TUI. I'd like to invite the Group Brand Director, Toby Horry, to come and join me for 15 minutes before we hear from the rest of the panel. So, Toby, thank you.
Thanks, Dan.
Welcome.
Thank you.
So let's kick off. So what is allyship for you?
Well, I think for me, it's really about 2 words. It's about empathy and it's about support. And I think without those 2 things, it doesn't really mean anything. And I think as a individually, that's something that I've really tried to take into the relationship that Felicia and I have developed, and you meet Felicia in a minute. But I think the other thing about allyship is that there's 3 things. One, it can be a sort of a formal thing, like the network that you've just talked about. But also, allyship should be something that I feel like should be practiced every day. You can practice it in a moment, in a meeting. So I think that's a really important aspect of allyship. I think the word ally, I think it, and we'll come back to this point about how, if you talk about 2 countries being allies, the whole point of that is a mutual benefit. So it's got to be a mutually beneficial thing. This isn't about some bloke coming in and telling everyone what to do. That's absolutely not what it's all about. So I think there's mutual benefit. And I think, and also the definitions, I think, do get changed around a bit. And I bought this book on stage with me called Belonging, which is called The Key to Transforming and Maintaining Diversity, Inclusion and Equality at Work by Catherine Jacobs, Sue Unerman and Mark Edwards. And the reason I bought it is because they wrote down definitions of the different people that you might need in your life, your working life. And they talk about 5 different types of people, one of which is an ally. And they talk about it as an ally from the other side. And that's someone from another cohort who will provide unexpected support. But they also talk about a sponsor, someone who talks you up when you're not there, a wingman or wingwoman, someone who helps you in ways you cannot help yourself, a cheerleader, cheers you on no matter what, and a buddy who cheers you up, laughs with you, mops you up, has a good moan with you. And I think they talk about, actually, you don't just need one of those types of people in your life, you need all 5. And I think that's something that I sort of looked at myself and I think, do I have those 5 people in my life? So I think it's important that we do think about the different roles that we can play in this sort of sphere, and allyship is one of those dimensions, yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. So why is this topic important to you?
I mean, I think fundamentally I've realised as I've got older that as a white English-speaking male, I've benefited and been privileged in ways that I couldn't really ever articulate. And ways that I probably maybe haven't even spotted. So I think it's important, firstly, for me to recognise that. But also, I think we live in a diverse society in which different dimensions of diversity shouldn't affect people's ability to move on in life and to achieve what they want to achieve. So I think putting those 2 pieces together, I felt like I needed to do something that made a difference back the other way. But also, I think it, in a slightly selfish way. I mean, I think we're a big business. We take all sorts of different people on holiday, and unless I can try and empathise, and my team can try and empathise with all those different types of people, then we're probably not going to do a very good job. So it does have that sort of direct benefit to the sort of day-to-day as well, in terms of hopefully doing a better job in appealing to different types of customer.
Yeah, yeah. And how have you benefited from working with women during your career?
Well, I mean, I've been very fortunate. Actually, the last 7 years, all my bosses have been female, and I think, therefore, it's one of those things where I almost sort of don't notice it on a day-to-day basis because it is just the norm. But like I say, then you take a step back and you look at some of the systemic differences that there are, particularly in travel, but in society more generally, be that in sort of engineering or pilots and that sort of thing. So, whilst those things exist, it's important that we are sort of taking action and trying to make a difference. So, so I think it does help, and also it makes you think twice about things. So one of the things we've developed at TUI is a set of diversity guidelines for anyone who's creating any content or film or photography or that sort of thing. Yeah. And I think it's partly due to programs like this that's made me even step back and go, we don't have a set of guidelines, we need them. So I think it really does sort of help on a day-to-day basis as well, yeah. Yeah,
and that's outward facing, a bit like the fantastic scheme we heard from Celebrity earlier.
Yeah.
But within the business, what's TUI's approach to ensuring that women have a fair opportunity to rise through the ranks?
Well, I mean, I think, again, it's something that you don't tend to notice on a day-to-day basis. I mean, as I say, my bosses are women. I think 80% of my team are women. And so it's something that you think, it's easy to come and say, I don't actually think there is an issue. But again, you take a step back and you look at the stats, and and we're guilty in our senior leadership of it being too male dominated. And this isn't something that you can change overnight, but it is about taking those sort of steps day to day. And I think sometimes it's about going above and beyond, or just doing things that people wouldn't necessarily expect to offer that support. So, a small example recently, there was a really good online session set up internally on the menopause, and I joined that session because I wanted to learn more. And I think there was some surprise that why has he joined that session? But I think it's important that I understand different dimensions of people's lives, and hopefully by joining that session, it means that normalises it slightly more, and people feel that they can talk about it in ways that maybe they couldn't have done before. So I think, again, often it's not big, grand gestures. It's often small things on a day-to-day basis that you can do to make a difference. Yeah.
But there remains a real job to be done, I think, to engage more men
Yes.
in this conversation here. It's partly on evidence here today. I mean, I resonate with what you just said. I joined a Travel Talks menopause event where similarly I was vastly outnumbered, obviously, and there were very, very few men that seemed to be interested in the topic. But what's the key to engaging more men in this conversation?
I think you just have to lead by example. I think sometimes there's a danger that's, it's not going to happen. If you wait for someone to say, oh, Toby, could you attend that talk on menopause? Or, that's not going to happen. You can't sit back and wait for someone to tell you what to do when it comes to diversity. You have to realise that I think in many cases it's about, if you see something and you don't think it's right, then it's up to you as an individual to take action on it. And I think that is the case for big companies as well as small companies and just society more generally. So I think really it's about having the confidence to feel like you have to take action yourself.
Yeah.
So I think, another example which came about on a different aspect of diversity was the back of the murder of George Floyd in 2020. And in my team, it felt like, well, we need to talk about this because this is important. And so I set up of course, we were all at home, so it was a Zoom call. So I set up a Zoom call, and we had a conversation about it. And people saw it as very positive. So we then continued and had that on a regular basis, and that then evolved into an employee network called Conversations About Diversity and Inclusion, where literally all we do is meet up and talk about different dimensions of diversity and inclusion. And I think no one would have necessarily told me to set that up, and it didn't happen, all in one go. It sort of evolved over time. Yeah. But I think it's important that people in business feel empowered to take those steps and not ask, sometimes ask for forgiveness rather than permission.
Sure. And I think that needs to come from the very top, doesn't it? Because it's the bosses that will set the tone.
Yeah.
And I'm sure, in your team, for example, now people will feel a lot more open to talk about these things because you've set the example.
Well, hopefully, yeah. And I think, yes, giving people that permission. But I think that also applies to even more mundane day-to-day things. I think, I certainly had that thing in the past where, let's say that in the daytime I was going to, sneak out and get a haircut. I'd say, oh, yeah, I've got a meeting. Nowadays, hopefully I can go, I'm going to get a haircut. Because I've got an hour, I'm going to go and get a haircut, and that's absolutely fine.
Does it take an hour to?
I mean, with the dye and blow dryers, maybe two, but yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. So it normalises that conversation.
Yeah, and I think COVID has. Don't get me wrong, the pandemic has been horrific, but if there's been any benefits, it has been about maybe demonstrating that flexible working is a possibility and it works. And if someone needs to go and pick their kid up from nursery, then they can go and pick their kid up from nursery, and that they work hard and they'll make it up at some other point. So and I think if it hadn't been for the pandemic, I think we'd still be maybe stuck in that, maybe we can do 1 day a week from home. Yeah. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that working from home 5 days a week is necessarily the panacea either, but I think it definitely has opened people's eyes to different ways of working. So I think that's a real positive. We're going to take positives out of it.
I agree, and I've seen it in my business as well, and I'm sure a lot of people have seen it, that there's been a shift maybe from working, the working hours to working the job and getting the job done, and in sometimes at flexible hours. Yeah. And hopefully that's something that really benefits this argument and what we're talking about today. Yeah. Just a sort of sensitive note, and I'm really conscious of this. We're two blokes that have just sat on the stage talking about this issue. Is there a danger that this can appear patronising, or that even the male allyship network can appear patronising to?
Yeah, there definitely is a danger, and I'm sure Fliss will talk about this, because I think there is that. Hang on, why is a man coming in and telling me how things should work? Because that's absolutely not. But I suppose I go back to my point about ally. The word ally is about mutual benefit, and so I feel like I've got loads out of the partnership with Fliss. So I feel really fortunate about that. And I think it is, you've really got to go into it, realising you've got to listen more than you talk. And so it is very much about listening and growing my perspective and hopefully growing my empathy. Fliss's business is completely different from TUI, so I feel like I've learned a lot about different dimensions of the travel industry as well. So, I think listening and empathising more than talking is the most important thing.
Yeah. And when we come on to talking around the network and how it works. I think this, as you just said, the emphasis on the two-way relationship. It's not one side dominating the other. It's very much learning on both sides, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Successful male allyship relationship. Good. And just a final question before we bring in the group. Do you foresee this changing over time? You know, I wonder, you know, we would have had a different conversation on this platform 10 years ago. We'll probably be having a different sort of conversation 10 years from now. How do you see this area evolving?
I mean, I'd love to say that, you know, we wouldn't need sort of allyship programs and that sort of thing in 10 years' time. But I think a lot of the data suggests that there is still quite a long way to go. Yeah. And I think in a world where, you know, the Supreme Court is overturning Roe versus Wade, it demonstrates that we have got a hell of a long way to go. And it's even more important that, you know, as men, we are trying to, you know, do the right thing and be on the right side of history. And I think, therefore, it's important that just try and take action. And this is just one small way in which I could maybe try and sort of move in that direction. Yeah.
And maybe it'll be a completely different argument, though, further down the line. We'll be focusing on other areas of diversity.
I mean, I think, you know, intersectionality in diversity is massively important, and I think it can turn into a bit of a circular argument because, you know, it's absolutely right to have sort of single issue focus groups or not focus groups, pressure groups or groups in general, but it's also important to always remember the intersectionality that exists across diversity. It's very rarely one dimension. But having said that, if you try and solve everything in one go, it can seem impossible. So I think having that, you know, having single issue groups is really important, whilst always bearing in mind that there is intersectionality when it comes to diversity.
Yes, absolutely good point on which to conclude this part of the conversation. Now let's hear from our mentees and mentors. Come on down.
Some more chairs.
And we need some more chairs.
Bring the chair.
Here come the chairs. Yep. Yes. So appearing on the screen shortly. So we've got 3 different relationships here. We're going to be exploring. We'll go back a stage. So Toby is here with his mentee Felicia Severns from Odyssey World. Shall we keep you together in your groups? Yes. And I'll go to where's Shaon? Oh, okay. Here he is. He just wanted to make a big entrance, didn't he? Yeah, that's quite all right. You go there, and I'll go to the lectern. Just to introduce everyone here, sat in their groups. So we have Toby and Felicia. We've got here Shaon from Geotourist and Danica from ReviewPro. And to this end, Tom Power from Pura Adventure, and Chantal from Themba Travel. Great. Okay, we talked about the theory. Now we've got the practice. And these guys have all been developing their mentor-mentee relationship over the past few months. I'm proud to say I know a little bit about this myself, because my own mentee is at the back of the room here, Elisa. Hello. But let's talk to you guys about how this has come about. First of all, can we really, really quickly just hear a little bit about you and your companies, so how you kind of fit together? So very quickly. So Tom, tell us a bit about the business.
So I'm co-founder of a specialist tour operator called Pura Aventura. We're one of the early adopters of B Corp in the UK. So sustainable, tailor-made travel to Latin America, Spain and Portugal.
Great. Chantal.
I am Chantal. I'm the founder of Themba Travel, doing travel to South Africa.
Thank you, Chantal. Felicia.
I'm Felicia. My background was all in ski resort marketing and sports hospitality, and then I got into the leisure industry just before COVID when I took over ownership of a tailor-made tour operator, which was great timing. So I now run Odyssey World, which is a tailor-made tour operator based in the UK.
Great, and you took that over just before?
6 months. Yeah, I just wanted a challenge.
Got it. Yeah. Oh, we'll hear some more about that. Toby, we've already.
So,
Yep.
TUI, we're a big tour operator. Yeah.
I think we've heard of that one.
Spell it.
And hi, my name's Danica. I'm a director of product engagement at ReviewPro. We work with many hotels around the world to help them with their guest experience, guest intelligence, and really improve the guest experience. And I just wanted to say thank you for everybody in the coffee breaks. I feel like I've had such great advice from everyone, so it's been really, really cool to be here.
Great.
And thanks to Alessandra and the team, who are really busy looking at the conference schedule.
Put the phones away. Shaon.
Hi everyone, I'm Shaon Talukdar. I'm CEO and co-founder of a company called Geotourist, and we have been described as, I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say this in this building, but we've been described as the YouTube of audio guides. And what we do is we have a platform where people can create and share stories in the form of audio trails with people to help travelers guide themselves around places of interest. And now we're trying to answer the question, what makes people travel?
Yep. Thank you, Shaon. So yeah, we've got sort of tech businesses at the end and operators. Let's start, Tom and Chantal, tell us a little bit about how long you've been talking, how often you talk, and how easy it's been to kind of develop that relationship. Chantal?
Tom posted on LinkedIn this morning how excited he was to get into this male allyship. I was not.
Tom!
I was
So,
the wrong Tom. There's a Tom from Intrepid. And she got on the screen and she said, "Oh, I thought you were the other Tom." In your box.
But I think Tom obviously have South African roots, and I really did not want to be coupled with a South African white male, just because of my diverse background, and I wasn't going to listen to him. But I thought, as Alessandra has asked us, give it some time, you know, give it like week 2 or 3, just kind of listen him out. So I thought, well, all right, let's do this. I've been delighted. And yeah, we've been, since last November, we've met every second week for about 2 hours.
Okay.
Mostly Tom talking. Me listening.
So when Toby was talking about the importance of listening, so every relationship is different.
Yeah,
Yes.
so this is a different relationship.
Okay.
But yeah, so we have frequently met. We've met once in person. I think it was the second year that we met for the first time here in London. We took a long walk, and I asked him, why have you signed up to this program? Because I really wanted to know. I wanted to suss him out. And he told me a long story once again.
It was a long walk. No, sorry.
It's a bloodbath.
You're committed. You're committed now.
So it was something that Tom said that then by the end of that walk and by the end of coffee, I thought, yeah, I'm going to give this a go. He was on university and he was part of some Spanish Revolution. And I thought, this is the guy. He was part of transformation and changes.
You clearly weren't listening.
And I thought, you know, for anyone that wants to change the status quo, for anyone that wants to step into a place where, you know, everything, I'll just, you know, ride this wave, for anyone then to stop and say, no, this needs to change, I think spoke to me, because that was exactly what I wanted to do in the industry. So, yes, I've been with him ever since.
Obliged to be with me ever since. It's a fine line.
We're going to come back and explore some of those issues.
I wouldn't. It's Pandora's box.
Let's jump to the end. Let's hear from Shaon and Danica. Tell us about how you started your mentor-mentee relationship, what it consists of, how often you meet, and where it's going.
Want to go?
Well, I guess we got paired from the tech backgrounds, and I don't know how you do the pairing, but it was, because I remember the first session was like, let's just have, I think it was a 10-minute conversation to see kind of how it flows, and I think we spoke for an hour, and then it was like, okay, Thursdays, 7 o'clock bi-weekly, there we are on Zoom, and it was just, that was it. So you guys did a really good job pairing us together, because I think his background and knowledge of what I do in my role is a big part of how it works. And I think it's really important. I feel like I have a business therapist on speed dial. I really think it's really important I was saying I have friends, family, really good support in the workplace, but to have someone, I have another feather in my toolbox, or feather in my bow, tool in my toolbox, that it dedicates so much time to me, and I'm so grateful. And so to the both of you, thank you. It's been 9 months. It feels like it's been longer and shorter at the same time, but the value of those bi-weekly calls on my life has been so significant. It's amazing what you can do.
And have you always met on Zoom as well?
Yeah.
Yeah, we met for the first time in London last month, which was really nice.
Yeah. And Shaon, would you echo what Danica said?
Yes, so I mean, this wouldn't have been possible without Zoom or online video conferencing. So in terms of allyship, I think the first thing that we established is that we are Team Danica. So it's about seeing Danica's challenges as she sees it, and it was so we were on the same page from the beginning. So it was a lot of it was around communication and understanding where communication may be working better than other places. And she's a leader within her organisation, so she has people to report up to, as well as to teams that report up to her. And so we identified some of the key areas where she was facing challenges with different team members. And also looked at, she's very, very capable, very, very dynamic, very energetic. And it was about how to prioritize and not not lose herself within all the things she was trying to do, so that she could be, less is more, so she could be more present. And I think unless you're fully present within your role, how can you possibly, participate, engage, and contribute to your team and your surroundings? And one of the important things I felt was demonstrating your full potential is not only important to the people around you, but actually to yourself, because if you can demonstrate to yourself that you can deliver what you believe you can, you can get rid of a lot of those insecurities that hold people back. And she's excelled, and we're now talking about leveling up, because I think she's been recognised by senior leadership within her organisation, and that's been a massive impact.
And it does sound a lot like you both gained a lot from
Well, how lucky am I, everyone?
Yeah, so a bit more listening, a bit more talking.
Taking notes.
A bit more equal. Okay.
From both sides.
I'm joking, sorry.
Classic pincer move.
Sorry.
And yes, Toby and Felicia, do you want to start, Felicia?
He's nervous now.
Over to you.
I think when we were paired, I thought it was a bit of an opposite match, actually, because, we're a small, independent, authentic tour operator, and sometimes we'd say we're the anti-TUI. So when I get matched with TUI, it's like, ooh, okay, what can we learn from each other? But a lot. We've met up pretty monthly, isn't it? And online, unfortunately. We met up once in London, which was better, I think. And we should have all been like that, which I think we all do, really. But for me, I felt like I was sort of thrown into running a business, doing every single job of a tour operator with very little experience of that role. And support was I just didn't have it. I didn't have it from the industry. I didn't have it coming from anywhere. So to have Toby to listen to the crisis of the week. And by the time we worked on one issue, I was over there putting out another fire, and it was another crisis. And I'm sure it was quite frustrating for Toby, because I'm not structured as you are. I think it's another reason we were paired together. So I think it was great for me to just be able to offload a little bit, as you were a very good listener, and to kind of keep me on track and the focus. So, you got off lightly there.
That went well. And like I say, I think I learned a lot from Felicia as well. So I mean, one of the things, and clearly I'm now speaking for you, so do kick me. But the importance of your work-life balance and about how you're not just working to work yourself to an early grave, and actually the work-life balance thing really important. So you spent, was it a month in Colombia, working from Colombia, running your business out of Colombia?
I made sure I called you when I was there.
Yeah. No,
I wanted you to see that background.
How are things there? Oh, terrible. Oh, yeah. So I think but that's just, again, a real eye-opener, is like different ways of doing things, and you know, the thought of, okay, wow, so I maybe could get on a plane and go and work out of Colombia for a month. So I learned a hell of a lot as well, yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like you've all built quite strong relationships, actually. But none of you actually spent too much time doing this. And that's quite interesting, I think, because I don't think anyone should think like developing a strong mentor-mentee relationship is going to take up too much time in our busy lives. So you meet every couple of weeks. You meet sort of every couple of weeks, and you're sort of once a month kind of thing, and that's working. That works well.
Yeah, and I would add the speed of which, like from the moment you meet to week 2, it's as if you've known each other for 5 years. Yeah. So I think it's amazing how Zoom meetings bi-weekly, you can just hit the ground running, and I think there's something really therapeutic to have a safe space where you can really let your guard down and just vomit a whole load of worries, concerns, what's going on in your mind. Yep. It really, I think, fast tracks that process of being able to build that trusted relationship.
I think as well, you don't want it to be a chore that you have to prepare for a meeting, because we're all very, very busy in all of our lives. Yep. So you didn't have to have not really homework as such, or plan anything. And like Danica said, as a business therapist, I think sometimes that role of support that's incredible. And that's what made it so important. So.
Yeah. And it's important that you're not competing businesses, obviously.
Well, I was going to say, essentially to that point, that I think the value of it is just in the fact that it's kind of free access, it's full access. That's the whole point of it. If you're holding back, then there's no value to it. Yeah. So
it sounds like you've never held back, Tom.
I can't win. I'm not.
sorry.
I'll be dangling from the ceiling as a piñata later. But I'm aware that the whole concept of allyship. I mean, a couple of things that I felt. One is that I'd kind of been on a similar journey in terms of business, of sort of sitting there, however many years ago, on my own. Chantal, same thing, doing it just pre-COVID, similarly. Yeah. I know how lonely I felt for long stretches of time. That must have been multiplied X times for Chantal because of COVID. Because, so she's a woman setting up a business. She's a woman of colour setting up a business. She's not even from here setting up. But, so just sort of multiply the challenge by all of those kind of factors. Yeah. And so, I felt like, well, I can at least alleviate her loneliness by talking at her for 2 hours.
That's right.
The other thing, my sort of privilege has also sort of led me to sort of end up on this, Goldman Sachs, which I would highly recommend to people in the room, but Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Businesses, fully funded kind of micro MBA, 4-month kind of intensive program. It's free. Yeah. But I'd gone through that in late 2017, and it just felt a lot of the tools that, whatever my life had taken me to the doors of that, through that, a lot of those tools were very, very relevant to where Chantal was. Yeah. And so, it had taken me 15 years to find the door of that. Yeah. So if I can just speed up her journey a bit, then that's a sped up diversification of our industry. Yeah. So let's do it.
Fantastic, yeah. Well, let's explore this a bit more and actually the specifics of what you're learning from each other. Toby, can we come back to you? So we were talking at the beginning there about the two-way relationship. Yep. And on the one hand, you're the biggest company out there, and Felicia is one of the smallest. So tell us what you're learning from her.
Well, I mean, firstly, I've only been in the travel industry 3.5 years, so so just learning the different dimensions of the travel industry. I mean, the travel industry is enormous and made up of so many different types of companies. So there's just that very basic, understanding of the different types of business that are out there.
Yeah.
So that was important. But as I say, just sort of different ways of working, different ways of thinking as well. So I probably am a bit more structured, maybe sometimes a bit over-structured, and I think therefore, having Fliss to maybe sort of challenge in different ways, and I think that's important. So I think it's not necessarily just about sort of factually learning, but I think emotionally learning is more important, and that's certainly what I took a lot out of it, and hopefully I was able to, similarly actually I did a great course called the Mark Ritson Mini MBA in Marketing, which I'd definitely recommend as well. And again, just able to share some of the things I took out of that, because whilst you're literally running your own business, and TUI's enormous, the principles of marketing are fundamentally the same. So from that perspective, it becomes comparatively easy to share information, because at a principle level, whether you're trying to communicate to 100 people or to 1 million people, it's actually pretty similar.
Yeah.
So hopefully I was able to sort of offer that back in return.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah.
I think a lot of what we're hearing is great, but perhaps a lot of it would apply for kind of any mentor-mentee relationship. Let's hear a little bit more about the gender understandings that's going on, and maybe the help. And I know, Danica, we were talking earlier that perhaps your relationship with Shaon has helped you perhaps in the way that you relate to other men at work. Is that right?
Yeah, and I think that's maybe one of the benefits that you get as well, hearing the flip side of the coin.
Yeah.
So we talk a lot about sentiment and how I use sentiment in how I communicate, and whether it's to do with communication or whether it's how I sort of attack strategy. His perspective is very different to my perspective, and not only as a male and a female, but also having the understanding of a CEO's perspective has been really helpful to me as a leader, because I've never really understood. CEO obviously looks at things very differently, so that's been really, really valuable. And just, giving me that second perspective that maybe I didn't, really think of it like that, and, how to deal with my passion and channel it in the right way, how to be the balance between proactive and reactive as well, and finding that fine balance. So I think a mixture of being male and his experience and being a CEO himself is just, combine those three together, is just, really powerful.
Yeah, and Shaon, you were nodding yourself.
I mean, in terms of some of the direct takeaways that I had, I mean, I had only recently, before I'd been paired up with Danica, actually taken on my own head of product as well, and it was a woman who had also just come back to work. Well, she had a previous role, but then she had recently had a child like a couple of years before, and she was coming back to work. She went to another role and then came to us, when I started the actual mentorship, I said, look, I'm doing this thing, and I was obviously a lot more aware of the things that Danica was sharing. So I said to my own head of product, I said, well, can are you able to share if there are any barriers that you faced as a woman coming into this role? I'd hope there aren't, but please feel free to share, because this is all feedback, this is all part of the process. And what she did, which was really invaluable, but also really useful, she kind of shared some of the things that didn't happen here, but were the reason why she joined us, which was in a previous role, it was very office-based. Obviously, a lot of jobs were office-based back then, and ours was a remote role. And what she said, there used to be a stigma attached to her leaving work on time, because she had the roles of going back to look after the kid, cook. I was about to say develop food. Cook food for the family, and also she was trying to further her own development. So she was actually doing further education. I think she was doing a master's. Yeah. So this was all evening classes on top of a full-time job, on top of looking after a 2 or 3 year old by that point. Yeah. And what the impact of that was, leaving on. She was always 100%. Got all her work done on time, but what the culture of that particular working environment was, a lot of the men were able to stay longer, and a lot of the water cooler chat used to happen, and a lot of the project ongoing discussions used to happen, and her actions were looked negatively within the team dynamic. And what ended up happening, and this is more to do with the culture of that specific organisation, which I'm not going to name, but what they then started to do was they started to kind of act more negatively towards her. They started to get her to do things out of her job description, and these are more technical things which, without training, you're going to basically they were setting her up to fail. So she couldn't win while trying to juggle all of that. So, and for me, and what she said to me, she said this role was perfect because when my daughter's ill, I can keep an eye on her, still give my 100% and continue to develop. I don't have to do the commute, so I get an hour or two back every day, which I can spend on family and work. And she said, that has transformed my life completely. And she said, in terms of the ability, the workplace, are there any kind of microaggressions or anything? She said, it's very open here. And I feel very, I'm able to feel fully present here, which means I'm able to give a lot more, and I'm happy to do that as well. And just to hear that after all of the process that we were going through, obviously was a, not necessarily validation, because I wouldn't like to say we've done it. I think it's always being open-minded and always listening, and just understanding that every time a new person comes on, they bring on whatever their own experiences are. And it kind of goes back to what I said originally. If you're not fully present, how can you fully experience and how can you fully contribute?
And the timings were good as well, because when I joined, I'd just gone back to work after maternity, and luckily my company's fully behind, and I'd actually got promoted on my maternity. And in Spain, the laws, Amanda, I don't know if she's still in the room, but it was so, I felt so sorry for her when she was talking about the struggles of having to have one child because of childcare. And luckily in Spain, legally, not necessarily the companies, but legally they really are for paternity and maternity pay. So it was really good timing to hear my experience and kind of be able to share what's happening in Spain and regarding maternity and getting a promotion. And I think that was also, again, aligned perfectly in timing-wise.
Yeah, that's a really great example of something specific that's come out of this, a positive outcome. Are there any more specifics that any of you would like to share, things that you've done differently or projects you've approached in a different way as a result?
I think in a way with talking about Toby's background in marketing, big business, and the structure and the millions of pounds and the big team that you have to bring that in. But as you said, marketing principles are the same. And I think sort of helping me to focus on what's important. And you mentioned balance. I've chose not to have children. I've got very different challenges than other women in the room. I grew up in a very male environment. I've had male bosses. I've been very fortunate that my work experience has always been very, very positive. So as you sort of said in your intro, and you called me out and said, I've got some things to say about the male allyship, I was like, why do I need a male ally? But, I expect everyone to be an ally, and I'll call anyone out who isn't. So I think that may be a little naive for, in the bigger picture. That's my experience, but sorry, it's not everyone's. And certainly being in this kind of room and hearing your experience in big business is a really good way to sort of help me as a business leader as well, to understand that not everyone's situation is like me. But sorry, just going back to specifically, Toby's focus on the structure. I know what's important to me and how I want balance in my business, that it's not all about growth and success and all those amazing things that we're taught, but to channel that into the real core and the real heart of what I want my authentic travel business to be. And that's come from big business learning to small implementation.
Yeah,
so that's
brilliant.
really important.
It sounds like there's a lot of sort of newfound empathy going on across you all, actually. Chantal, you look like you had something.
Yes, for me, the objective was that I needed to generate sales for my business. I came in like that, and the mentor, I believe, would help me with that. So I was stopped in my tracks about that. Because I think when you want to start a business that would want to transform the industry, there's a lot of your heart that goes into it. And I haven't given much thought to myself and why I am doing this. Of course, I've written it down somewhere, 3 lines why I'm doing this. But the process with Thomas, we literally delved into that all the time. Why are you doing? There were at least 2 or 3 moments when I ended up crying. He makes you cry as well.
Add it to the list.
But it was really...
In a good way.
In a good way.
Yes.
In a good way, because
Trying to help.
most of the time...
Throw me a rope.
No, but it was that introspection of who I was as a person, what value I brought to this business. Themba means hope, and for me it was all about bringing hope, treating people with respect and dignity in the destination that we so lovingly sell. And my heart was with the people of South Africa and the people that receive the UK travelers. And I planned well that in my supply chain, everything that, you know, I'm going to use the women, the small operators. And I had all that in my head, and it was all planned. And what I was faced with almost at every session is, Chantal, you know, do you understand the value that you bring to this business? And he parked there all the time, and I cried, and I said, please, can we move on to generating sales? And I cried, and he just, and when I cried, you know, Thomas was just waiting for me.
Waiting to speak.
Well, he was very patient, and he was very kind. He was very kind.
After I'd made you cry.
Yes.
Typical,
But it
classic
was
abusive.
clearly, I think also for me, it was clearly a man that, you know, just didn't fumble when a woman cries in front of him. He was very kind, and he let me cry, and he, and he was speaking about vulnerability. And I know earlier today there was, you know, talk about vulnerability, and that is so true. And for women, you know, wanting to pursue this entrepreneurship journey, there's going to be lots of moments when you're going to cry. But, you know, I did not take enough time to appreciate myself and the value that I bring into the business. So clearly, we have doubled the prices.
Yeah.
If I shared with Thomas about this, I'll charge this, and, you know, he was like, what? Do you not understand cost of sales and cost of value? Chantal, you have so much to give. And I think right in the beginning, also in the first few sessions, he said to me, your greatest weakness is your self-awareness. So I think for me, over this 9 months has been really about self-awareness. And obviously, it just cemented more why I want to do what I'm doing. So
But I think, I mean...
I appreciate him.
You weren't expecting that, were you?
I'm not sure where we go from there.
Well, just in business terms, what it was that Chantal was trying to be everything to anyone.
Yeah.
So it was kind of, here you are as this kind of little voice in the market of selling to South Africa, and yeah, I can do that. Oh, yeah, I can do that. You can.
Yeah.
And so it's just trying to say, look, why? Don't bother. You know, it's about stopping doing the stuff.
Yeah.
And really just focusing on the stuff where she is the only person in this country that you would want to call for those kind of trips.
Right.
So it's just, and in order to do that, because I think there's this classic entrepreneurial thing, right? I've got to be everything to everyone, right? So, and I've got to be brilliant here, and I've got to be brilliant here, and of course over here you're juggling, you know, sort of trying to pay the mortgage, you're juggling childcare, you're juggling cooking, you're juggling shopping, you know, all of us doing this. So anyway, so we're just juggling life.
Yeah.
Oh, and a pandemic.
Yeah.
Oh, and why did I choose to set up a business and then the world stopped? What the hell?
Yeah.
So she's out there getting jobs kind of in care and in grocery shops just to keep the food on the table.
Yeah.
So through that, it's very, very difficult to then sit there and think, I'm powerful, I'm strong, and I have a real value and a place in this market, in an industry where I don't yet exist. And so I thought that was kind of my role. So I think that's probably where the tears came from, because it's kind of, you are amazing. You have this thing.
But I want to add as well, I think in this mentor-mentee relationship, you know, I think maybe sometimes I went into it, this is about me. But I think middle way through, I think there was one day we had a misunderstanding, and and he wrote me a long email, and I, for a moment, actually stopped and really thought, actually, this is not just about me. This is also about someone in the travel industry for 25 years with employees that COVID has affected his business dramatically. And so he had to say goodbye to half of his employees, and he was going through a lot of things that he needed to adjust to. And I had to show kindness to him as well. And
Yeah.
So that was the one where I was crying.
But yeah, I think, you know, it's this equal relationship where you actually, encourage one another.
Yeah. I have to say, you know, all joking apart, it sounds like this has been a really successful relationship. And the best thing about it is how open and honest and transparent that they are with each other.
Weepy.
Yeah.
I think the key is trust, though.
Yeah.
You know, that's sort of what it comes down
Yeah.
to, isn't it? And having someone that, you know, trust in Alessandra, really, and the organisation,
Yeah.
to pair us with someone that, who then in turn we can trust.
Yeah.
And I had some, I've created a new business, which I'm not ready to share yet, but I was kind of more excited to tell Toby than anyone else, because I knew that sort of support was there.
Yeah.
and the
If there's any
trust.
investors in the room, it's brilliant.
But we're not saying anything yet.
Related to Colombia.
Yeah.
But
I was import from Colombia. It's fine.
But that sort of just having that trust to have someone you know is in your corner, really, and as we've all been through, you know, the worst times. So that's good.
Fantastic.
I
I think we've
appreciate
been
you.
through all the emotions there in the last half
Can
hour.
I just add one more thing?
You may.
Because I didn't always have the opportunity to speak with Thomas. So
See the truth now, can't you?
I said to him last week in our session, I was going to share this, and I shared it with him on Zoom. And for the first time, he didn't have anything to say, which was a good moment of silence. But this is what really means a lot to me. So if you look on Thomas' LinkedIn profile, everyone must follow him now. So there was about a few weeks ago where he had a very short little post on, you know, his company has been invited by tourism ministers in Latin America just to come and collaborate or talk. It's going to happen in the future. But that was for me very inspiring, because it's not just about travel, you know, and what we give our clients and the holiday that we prepare for them. There's so much behind that. The industry has so many different systems. And for me personally, I do sell travel to South Africa, but my heart is really to bring transformation in the industry. It was difficult to find anyone that looked like me in the UK representing and selling South Africa. And there were many times I felt very offended, Daniel, that the UK sells South Africa in a very different way than what it really is. And for me, it is about transformation. And to read that post about Thomas, being able to sit around a table now with tourism ministers and have an opportunity to influence them, you know, through his company that he's built for so many years, was really inspirational, because it's not just someone that sells travel, but he wants to bring transformation in the industry, not just in this country, but actually in other parts of the world as well. And that, for me, is a powerful powerful leader in the industry.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
It's great. Yeah. I think we can take a question or two if anybody has one. Don't be shy. Any questions for the panel?
Can I ask the room, has anybody got a mentor? And is anybody a mentee?
Not many.
Wow, not many. Recommend it.
And now, are you interested?
Yeah.
Yes.
Can I say, sorry, at this point I think it's appropriate to say that we are opening the next round over the summer. So there will be a new cohort as this first cohort finish about July, now really June, July time. So if any of you is interested in being matched with a male ally, then you will be given the opportunity to do so. So watch out for the communications. And for the men in the room, if you haven't signed up to be an ally yet, then please do so now as soon as possible and tell your friends and peers to do the same. And look forward to seeing the current one repeating the experience over the next 12 months as well. So thank you.
Great. Thanks, Alessandra. And a big thanks to the panel. Oh, no, we have a question. We have a question.
Hi, my name is Hillary, and this is great timing because I've been thinking about mentorship a lot lately, and I'm wondering, what do you, as a mentor, what would you look for in a request? Because that's where I feel kind of weird. Like, I don't want to sound desperate or needy. I want to be respectful of your time and your expertise. So what do you look for to say, yes, this is somebody who I think, would benefit from having a mentor and somebody that I might want to be of assistance to?
Good question.
Wow.
Toby?
I guess someone who clearly there's an element of me feeling like I could make a difference and help them. So and that could be at a practical level, or it could be at an emotional level. But I guess there's something in there where you think, oh yeah, I could maybe help this person if it's a specific issue. But I suppose part of the beauty of allyship is that you get matched with people, and Felicia's talked about it, working completely different bits of the industry, that actually there's an element where you can learn from anyone and everyone. And so I'm not sure if I would, I don't foresee myself sitting there with a sort of list of requests and go, no. I'd like to think that, pretty much everyone I could learn from, and hopefully they can learn a little bit from me. So I wouldn't sort of worry too much about it, and as in, I think I'd just be honest and just sort of be transparent about what you're looking for, what you're hoping to do, what you're hoping to gain, and I'm sure you'll have lots of people only too keen to help out.
Yeah, I think that's the value of the sort of intermediary on this is that, you've got a sort of a matching situation, but then I think, as you say, Toby, it's not a technical coaching situation. So actually that relationship will simply take the form that it takes, and that sort of the flow of learning will just go over here or over there, and that might be sort of technical, it might be practical, it might be emotional, it might be, whatever. That I think from our point of view, I think as mentors, it's just you turn up with an open mind and open ears and then talk at them constantly.
Shaon.
So, I think you'll remember when we first started having our allyship group calls with the males. We sat around we were sat in our bedrooms or wherever we were, offices in the Zoom squares, and we were wondering, what are we doing? And we thought, what can we contribute? And Alessandra was very clear. She said that what we're doing is to create ripples that will create more opportunities for people like you who are keen to help and to learn and to understand, and the more we do that, the more people we bring on board, at some point we'll make ourselves redundant because there'll be no more need for male allies, and it will just be allies, and people will be open to this kind of experience. And I think what I've seen as a direct impact of my kind of relationship with Danica is the challenges we started off working on were kind of very tactical with her department. And now, last night, if you don't mind sharing this.
Yeah.
So she got a message at 2 a.m. from her CEO to say what he felt he saw in terms of her development during this process, and he sent her a text message to say, this is what I think of, and it was all very positive. It wasn't just, this is what I think of your whole thing. But he said this has been a really positive, he's seen a positive change in how she's been engaging with the entire organisation, and that's top down.
Wow.
So in terms of ripples, it's having an effect. So Alessandra, well done.
Yeah.
And I would echo that as well. And from my experience, I think this is an opportunity just to get really in depth with someone else's business and with someone else's mentality. Those fleeting conversations we all had in the breaks. Actually, this is an opportunity to go much, much deeper and on whatever level. It's fascinating. So yes, and one more question, if that's okay. Yeah. Microphone.
Song.
Okay, hi. It's actually not like a question, though. I want to know if this is limited to some certain people, because I'm currently doing my master's program in Bournemouth University, tourism marketing management, and this is actually a good thing. So I want to know if it's limited to some certain people, or maybe people working in the industry.
I don't believe so, but that's a question for Alessandra.
Okay.
Yeah.
At Women in Travel, we run several mentoring programs. Now, this male allyship was particularly aimed at women who are looking for the next step. So you find that the mentees here are all senior in their own right. So whether they want to grow their business or grow their career. But we have other mentoring opportunities which are open to all of you. And that might be sort of with mentors who are not necessarily men. It could be men or women. And they are people in industry who give back by volunteering with us as mentors. Many are, again, in this room. And so if you go on our website and you look through the opportunity, you probably will find something for you. So if it's not this one, and I'm not saying it's not, but if it's not the male allyship program, there might be something else available to you. Okay.
Great. On that note, please join me in thanking our panel.